This is a prepaid debit call from
Jono.
an inmate at the correctional institution. To accept this call, press 0.
Man, thank you for pressing 0 and welcome to another season of the R.A.N.T podcast. Welcome to season 3, all right? And I'm really excited to be here. I'm here with my co-host, Caesar.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. And you got Jono, man. So guys, look, and Caesar, I kind of want to get this, 2024 has already been a little crazy, right? And
yeah, start off hot.
And started off hot, and it really started with my boy Cat Williams, all right? Now, for those of you that didn't see that whole ordeal, man, Cat Williams came out swinging, expressing truth, right? Well, his truth, right? Who's to say? All right, I ain't no judge. But the point is, though, that I wanted to come with the same energy. All right, and I think that we should come with the same energy because there's a lot of things that I kind of want to talk about, things that most people are scared to talk about, and I kind of understand why, right? And it's because that's just kind of the climate that we're in, right? And so, one of the things that I really wanted to touch on, and one of the things that I wanted to dive straight into, is this overwhelming feeling of dread, this overwhelming feeling of hopelessness that society has kind of been making us all feel, right? Regardless of where you align politically or morally, whatever the case may be, economically, right? Wherever you stand, it's uncomfortable right now.
Yeah.
Right? It's totally uncomfortable. And so I think a lot of people can agree that right now there is this overwhelming feeling of hopelessness. And guys, that's something that I want to talk about, right? Because we can't be afraid to talk about these things anymore, right? Now, let me just start by saying that, regardless of what political candidate you're kind of thinking of, right? Regardless of, whether you align yourself right, left, whatever you want to label it, right? We're all kind of uncomfortable with where society is right now, right? And see, it's like, I know that me and you've talked about this a lot, right? Because, this wanting to do something about it, it kind of gets tiring when you work at it so long and nothing changes.
Yeah. And for us, it's like, when we were younger, I think it was heavily important on wanting to see change and doing something about it, or even voicing our own displeasures or opinions on it, hoping something would happen. But eventually that hope fades. I ain't gonna front. Like, you get burnt out, right? Like, cause now I'm in my early 30s. I remember when I used to care and have this fiery spirit and being involved in whatever it was, right? Because being involved doesn't just mean that all, you're out here marching or advocating, but it just also means like constantly trying to do things to change the lives of others. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And guys, we all got things that we really believe in, but that burnout is real, right? I think we can all agree that regardless of which political party is in office, nothing really changes for us.
Yeah, and honestly,
right?
I think that dread that you're talking about, man, I think really kind of came to fruition when, like, going off the topic you're saying, man, it's like, I think when we all realize that regardless of what party, like, they're not really looking out for their base, their constituency, like, at all. It don't matter if you're on the Democratic side or the Republican side. There's like a heavy displeasure with who they got in front of us. Yeah. And it kind of just let us know, like, man, it's almost like we got to be out here fending for ourselves, kind of figuring it out.
And that's the worst thing, especially when when you see
you're paying taxes, man.
When you got $600-700 coming out of your paycheck every week, like every time you get a paycheck, you know what I mean? Like every time I get a paycheck, I'm getting like at least $700-800 taken out of that check, right? And that hurts, bro.
Yeah.
And then not only does it hurt, but then you suddenly see that nothing that functionally like affects me is happening, right? Instead, all of our money is getting sent overseas to enable
to
war.
whoever,
right? Yeah. If it ain't a war, they don't really, they ain't going, that money's not going nowhere, right? Like it's got to be towards war. And so that's one of the instances which you see that, like, regardless of whether, right, if you're a Democrat, the Democrats are letting you down big time. Time. If you're a Republican, I mean, what they're saying sounds nice, but they're really just trying to, take care of the rich. Like, if you're not a billionaire, there's not really anything that a Republican's doing for you that's actually helpful, other than giving, they say a lot of good things that might make you say, oh man, that's amazing. But then they don't do anything for you.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so
at
like,
the end of it, man,
you can't win.
We go back to the stat that, like, 60% of the American base is living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
So that just kind of lets you know, like, yo, like things are getting like that number is slowly growing. Things are getting more expensive. The political scene is like, yo, makes you not want to watch news because it's all hecticness all the time. Ain't nothing good coming on.
And you know,
but at the end of it, you have this feeling of wanting to fight back. At least that's kind of like the why we mentioned the wanting to be involved and having that flame and that spirit of pushing back and trying to see change.
yeah.
But it's tiring when you start seeing how crazy and uneven the scales are tipping, and not the favor of the common person. Like,
Yeah. And guys, that's the reason that we cannot give up, right?
Yeah.
As a group, as a whole, you know, because we're the ones responsible for where this ship goes, right? Like, you know, the reason that a burnout happens for a lot of people is in the beginning you have all this fire inside, right? And all this, and in the beginning you got all this, this wanting to change things, right? And then suddenly you start seeing that nothing changes. Politicians will say one thing and do something else entirely.
They just want your vote.
They just want your vote, and then once they have your vote, they're really just listening to their political donors, right? You know, and guys, this isn't like, it's not a conspiracy. Like, that's the one thing I like to tell people. Like, this is not a conspiracy. They're not low key corrupted, or no, they're like full blown corrupted, and bribery is legal in the United States. Like, it's actually legal in the United States to bribe. Now, it's not called a bribe, right? It's called lobbying. Right. And you can't directly give the money to the politician. Instead, it has to go through a super PAC. And right, there's all these, you know, hoops that you got to jump through. But yeah, you can ultimately get money in a politician's pocket in a very clean and legal way. And then ultimately you tell that politician, hey, if you want more of this money, you gotta do some things that I want you to do.
You gotta vote how I need you to vote.
You gotta vote how I want, because I'm supporting you so that you can pass certain legislation. Right, guys? The Supreme Court said that this is okay. Right. And so money is in politics, right? That means that regardless of whether you're voting for a Democrat or a Republican, someone is paying them. And that means that whoever is paying them ultimately wants something different than what you want, right? It's not in our favor.
Yeah.
Now you do have political candidates that don't have to answer to no one because they got their own money. Right. And those politicians don't seem to be no better. Right. Because they be coming in with their own agendas because they got their own money. That means they're billionaires. So they got stuff that they want to benefit from. Right. Like, anyways, guys, the point is here that we ultimately want to empower everyone. Right. Who is watching this to, at the very least, let's not let democracy slip out of our hands. Right. Like, we can't do that either. Right. Like, you just can't let democracy, right? The ability for us to be the ones that kind of pick who we want in charge. That's the one thing we can't give up. You know what I mean? And if that's threatened by anybody or anything, you know, we got to be careful, right? But right now we have these two candidates, right? Because it seems like we know where it's going to go, right? You're going to have my man's Joe Biden, right? Representing the Democrats, and you're going to have my man's Donald Trump representing the Republicans, right? And the truth is that both these guys are jacked up. Right,
everybody's saying that it sucks. Like that, all I hear is like, "Yo, why do we have these two jokers up here?" At the end of it, like, why? They're
both jokers. Hey, Joe Biden promised he wouldn't run again because he knew he wasn't in an age where he should. Right, the guy's mentally deteriorating at a rate that's very alarming. Right, like, I mean, the other day he was talking about he was having meetings with someone that's been dead for over 20 years. You know, and everybody was on TV like, "Hey, big dog, like, I don't know if you peep, but homeboy's been dead for 20 years, right?" You know what I mean? And he can't get through a sentence. I mean, it's actually irresponsible that he doesn't want to step out, you know, or step back and allow someone else to run.
I mean, but the other thing is, it's irresponsible of how much the Democratic Party is letting him do it.
Yeah, exactly. So,
it's crazy.
Right.
But anyway,
it adds to the layer. It adds to that layer of like them being irresponsible and doing what's best for their pockets, as opposed to doing what's best for the American people. And shit, what's best for this election in their camp. Yeah. Right. Because they're harming themselves by putting up a candidate that like no one wants. Right. And then on the Republican side, right, you got a guy who, you know, is on trial for 91 different counts of things. Right. The man doesn't think, you know, he said he could shoot someone in broad daylight and nobody would do anything to him. Right. Yeah. And he's kind of right. You know what I mean? Like, this man can do no wrong in the eyes of his supporters and you know, and of course in his own eyes, he doesn't think he can do any wrong. And so this man, to a degree, And there's evidence that he's tried to undermine the political system, right? Like, and that's dangerous too, right?
Yeah.
That's just dangerous too, because of course he's playing with that democracy that I said we need to hold on to. So nearly.
I mean,
nearly.
but not to get away too much from the main topic is like this. All that being said, is really creating some type of dread, anxiety, like real like.
That's the point.
And I see it every day, man. Like everybody's like anxious about what's about to happen, like because that ultimately, the one thing that we are seeing is that these lines are dividing communities, peoples, families.
Thanksgiving is suffering.
Yeah,
Christmas is suffering.
At the end of it, it's like these people that you've never met, these parties that you see once every 4 years. These people that are basically just in DC or whatever state capital they belong to, don't ever come to your community until it's time for you to give them a vote. They're creating this strife, this dread feeling, this anxious feeling of resentment or whatever it may be. It's just like real negative energy amongst the common person, and that's kind of like the main strife. My main problem with this is like, why are we doing this? But then again, something I did was I took a step back, because I didn't want to kill that flame that we mentioned earlier. Right? Like I had this like outward wanting to change my surroundings and realized that like I had no control. My voice was to a degree voiceless. Now, I'm not going to say I wasn't being heard, but I wasn't seeing the change that I was looking for as rapid, right? Like, so like I had to start self-reflecting. I even stepped away. I was like, I stopped caring. I mean, Jono knows this. I stopped caring. I would voice it to him all the time. I literally stopped caring because I saw from my perspective what it wasn't doing for me, even though my taxes were being taken, my time was being taken, the value that I was putting forth was being taken as trying to be a upstanding right citizen. So I'm like, as much as I'm trying to do for them, and I'm not really getting nothing back except more taxes, bad business deals when it comes to like jobs. These jobs are just trying to pay minimal. Your college degree ain't worth nothing except the fee that you paid to get it.
People are suffering. You know
what
I mean? Like
they out here trying to pay motherfuckers with a degree like $17, $18, just crazy. That don't even pay the interest on the degree that you pay. On the loan you took out. But ultimately, what I guess my point is, what I realized was like I had to start reflecting inward, and kind of give the world my back, because I realized that I gotta focus on the things that are around me and the things that I care about, and the things that I can control in some degree. Right? Like it's not about control, but it's like watering a plant. If I water you every day for 4 or 5 years and you never grow, I can't keep watering you. It's not going to grow. Like, it's just like, it is what it is. But, for the plants that are like taking that nourishment and I'm giving at that time, I had to start looking at those things around me to at least to make myself feel better. Like that I had to get rid of that dread somehow. So I started looking at what I could do for me, what I could do for my family. Even if it was minimal, but just something.
And that's the direction it usually goes in, because, you get to a point where it's like, man, I'm over here so stressed out about, what's going on, on this grand scale, and I'm trying to help people. And you have that fire.
I want to care.
And then you want to care, but you see nothing's changing. And then suddenly you get into like this selfish kind of mode where it's like, man, now I got to take care of me. Like, and I had that happen to me, right? Where I'm coming home from prison, right? After serving 3 years. And as much as I have this advocacy in my heart, and as much as I want to be out here, putting my beliefs out here and, influencing people how I can, right? I don't have the energy anymore. Like, and it's been taken from me. And it wasn't until recently that I'm just like, man, like, I have a responsibility as well, right? And you got to do your part, no matter how small it is. Right. Yeah. And so, and because now we have other things to worry about too, right? Like we got families, you know what I mean? We've got wives, we've got, kids, we've got, there's things that are coming that now we're more desperate to protect than ever.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and everyone gets there, regardless of how old you are. If you know, if you don't get killed in the battle, right? If you don't, you know what I mean? Because there was once upon a time that if you, you know what I mean? If anybody was really causing too much of a social uproar, they would
Yeah.
get murdered, you know? And that kind of goes
Yeah.
into what was going on in the 60s and all these big time figures that passed away.
Got knocked
Right
off.
now,
Yeah.
they got knocked off the top. And so my point is, though, that, you know, you get to a point where now you got to protect the things that you have, and you realize, damn, I can't let this country go to shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, again,
or at least
guys,
my community that I live in,
at least the community I live in, which is one of the reasons that like voting in your local elections and your city elections and your, you know, those kinds of things are really important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because those kinds of elections are sometimes really but they're determined by like 15, 20 people sometimes. It really be the margin of victory is so small in these local elections. Those local elections actually affect what you see every day, right? Like whether or not your potholes are getting filled, right? Whether or not
your tax dollars are going to schools.
Your tax dollars are going to schools,
or whatever else that
right?
Really
people are speeding down your street all the damn time, and you know you just want them to slow down. So now you need to get some damn speed bumps put into the street because you got kids you got to protect and all. Right, those are the kinds of things that actually affect your life. So at the, you know what I mean. At the very least, I'm telling y'all, like, make sure you definitely partake in those local elections. Vote locally, right? And now nationally, that's the big elephant in the room. In a lot of instances, right? And Cez and I ain't sitting here telling anybody to go vote any kind of way. No, that's not what we're doing. That's not the point of today's episode, right? Mm-hmm. And earlier, you know, when I'm talking about these candidates and both their flaws, I'm just putting it out there that that's one of the reasons that so many people can't really get down with either side, right? You got all these people that are kind of in limbo and don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And they recognize that also, you know, it's looking like trash on both sides. So, guys, that's where a lot of that hopelessness comes from.
Yeah.
Right? That's where a lot of that hopelessness comes from. And that's what we wanted to talk about. We wanted to address the elephant in the room, right? Because we all feel it. I know I do. I know Caesar doesn't. It really doesn't matter where you align. It's just that right now we all feel like this isn't right.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, this isn't right.
And again, you don't want, like, the thing that you don't want is to let that inner flame die, right? But again, I'm always going to go back to that because it's like, we are still important, man. Like, and that's kind of what I had to keep telling myself in the sense of, all right, what I have at hand. And, you know, like we said earlier, man, we have families and I got a kid. And then figuring things out for that, right? Like, as much as I can sit here and vote and I'm going to do my part, I got to work on the immediate as well. And just rechanneling that energy that I had, you know? Because a lot of the time you get burnout because you want to keep doing that same thing that you were passionate about, but you aren't getting any results. So eventually you just stop. But then you could have used that energy elsewhere that you could have seen yielded more results, you know, that what was I saying earlier, when the instant gratification. Yeah. Right. A lot of the time it's
if you're not seeing that.
Yeah, you're not seeing it. Even long term, years can go by, you're not seeing it, but you technically need those. We all need that. So I just started focusing on my family, spending more time with them, doing things with them. But at the same time, also like putting money aside, saving. And for me, like just doing these things, I started looking at, you know, I'll mention it, but Acorns. I don't know if you heard of the app, but it takes your like side change and you can even set it up to like invest like $5 a week. You know, because I'm not really well versed in the stocks and everything else. But at the same time, seeing some type of yield back on minimal investments, even if it's a little bit, it goes a long way, especially in today's economy. Started making me feel better because I felt like I was doing something. You know, because even when I was spending like $3.50, it would round up those 50 cents and take it and invest it for me. Yeah. Doing stuff like that, man, and then just keeping tabs on everything I got going on with the family, just keeping a schedule, making time for my kid. You know, I got a 2-year-old that I got to pour into, making sure he turns into the well-rounded person that I want him to be or can be. You know, molding him, spending more time with my wife, helping her succeed in her field. You know, like seeing her happy. Talk to my parents about.
I was gonna say, and you know, I want you to continue going, but like, are these the things that you think, right, are giving you kind
Yeah,
of that energy, right? Like that
yeah,
energy to
man.
kind of keep that flame alive, right?
Yeah, because those are the things that really matter. You see that instant gratification from being able to work with them, you give them some
Mm,
advice or even hearing them out, man. Sometimes it's not anything more than just hearing them out.
yeah,
Talk to my parents. They're 30 years in this country, still don't speak English that well, but
yeah,
they have that fighter spirit to keep figuring it out, man. And that gives me
right. You
more
gotta
passion
honor them.
to, yeah, man, honor that, and just you know, just, it feeds that flame and almost makes you want to go back to voicing your opinions and doing everything else that you were doing before. But then I'm also like holding back too because it's like I want to keep feeding into the things that are feeding me, right? Because the moment that I turn my back on that and give too much energy to things or politicians that don't know me by first name, ain't never
Right.
spend a day with me, you start losing yourself because it's really just about that anger, that dread that's really feeding that. But that don't do nothing for nobody. So like
Yeah,
at least for me,
yeah,
I started just looking in to those that I care about and
yeah.
feeding that.
And you know that, thank you, C's, because that, right? Because we want, one of the goals of today's episode was like, man, let's talk about this hopelessness, but then let's also talk about what to do to get rid of this hopelessness, to feed yourself in a way that helps remedy that, right? And so C's is, of course, talking about how like, man, I really just kind of dove straight into the things that truly matter, right? And then those things that truly matter are giving him that fighting spirit to then come out and be like, all right, now I can kind of come back, because you got to recharge, right? Because
Yeah,
all of these things that we're feeling are ultimately dividing us, right? And we
yeah,
know that, man. And I ain't about to sit here and talk about let's kumbaya everybody, because the truth is you can't kumbaya with a lot of folks these days, right? But I think that it really is all centered in like, caring about each other,
yeah,
recognizing that, your neighbors are still your neighbors.
yeah,
Like if I'm being 100% honest, right? Like, of course, I'm a brown man. I'm Hispanic Latino, right? Like I can't hide that, and that's who I am. I remember I was locked up in prison, and all of my neighbors were white supremacists, like openly proud. Like, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't assuming that they were white supremacists. Like I knew they were white supremacists. They told me that they were white supremacists, and so all of my neighbors, fundamentally believed very different things than I do. And I say fundamentally because I don't believe in any one race being supreme, right? Or better than me, right? Like I'm sorry. And if you can't get down with that, then I mean, I guess we have a disagreement, right? But the truth is though that, these guys were my neighbors, right?
yeah,
And it was funny because we would have conversations, and I would always attempt to have these conversations in the way that was most civil, because of course I don't want to start shit with the guys that are like surrounding me all the time,
yeah,
right? There's that aspect of it. But also, these are my neighbors, man. Like, these are guys that, like, in this moment, like, we're getting through something tough together. And I just remember that I tried my best to treat these guys well. And it's crazy because they gave me that same love and respect back, right? And so during my time there, though, I learned that, like, man, these guys, like, I needed them in a way, too, right? Like, because in that moment, they were the ones protecting my cell and my space when I went away. And they took care of me, right? And so in a weird way, there was a little bit of camaraderie between us. You know what I mean? Like I took care of their stuff too, like when they weren't around, because these are the guys that, I had to rely on them. I'm in there with them. You
yeah,
know what I mean? And it really was us versus kind of the guards. You know what I mean? And so what I'm
yeah,
saying is that even though a lot of us have these differing opinions, man, like we got to go back to a little bit of service, right? Like, helping each other out, man, because that's where the divide is coming from. It's like it's people are really freaking out about differences. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? Like we don't have to coexist on this planet. There's so like, you know what I mean? Like we're all on one planet. So I guess what I'm saying is, man, is that like at the end of the day, man, like, we gotta coexist. You know what I mean? We gotta work on that. Everyone, right? Like,
yeah,
and that's hard to do. And so in taking care of yourself, man, and kind of in buckling down in those values and morals that like Caesar just kind of, walked us down. I think that that's one of the ways that you can kind of find peace with all of this too. You know what I mean? Like, and of course that's very optimistic, right? And
yeah,
guys, and I recognize that it's not all sunshine and rainbows out here either.
yeah.
But to Caesar's point though, man, it's just kind of, I guess getting down to the fundamentals to kind of
You,
reminding yourself how important, right? Yeah, how important, like, your those things that you love are. It kind of helps you see the humanity in someone else.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? Because all these people that you disagree with are also mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters,
Yeah.
sons, uncles. All these things. I don't know, man. And ultimately, I really do wish that we, as a nation, we really got back to like our citizens matter too. You know what I mean? Like, and citizens, all of our citizens look different, bro. Like this used to be. You're right. Everybody loves to talk about how much of a melting pot this used to be, right? And I know that, but my point is that we're all American, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like and I wish our politicians took care of Americans,
Yeah.
but they're more worried about their constituents that they don't do nothing for.
Their bottom
And
dollar,
so
to be
their
honest.
bottom dollar, right? How
Yeah.
much money's coming into their coffers, and so that's
Yeah.
disheartening too. But guys, that optimism and that unwillingness to not do your part, right? Like you got to be willing to do your part, and I'm gonna leave it here. I'm gonna let my man Caesar wrap it up, but my point is that this is what me and Caesar are trying to do. The point of today's episode really was to just kind of remind everyone that in the midst of this hopelessness, in the midst of this dread that we're all feeling, man, remember who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Remember who you are. Try not to let those things affect you too much, because the truth is that, the presidency doesn't really affect us as much as people think it does, right? Those local elections is really where you see a lot of changes in your community. It didn't matter when Donald Trump was president. It's not like it really affected me on a day-to-day basis, right? It doesn't matter when Joe Biden's president, because there was no difference between, you know what I mean? Like during the Trump years and during the Biden years, like as an individual, right? Like as an individual living my everyday life, there aren't really many things that they were doing that were affecting my day to day.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons that I do want to encourage people to not beat themselves up so much about the results of this election, but but ultimately, right? Like, keep trying to be good to one another, and I think we can get past this, man.
Man.
Keep being good to each other.
Do
your homework.
You do your homework on your local elections. Like Jono said, man, be good to your neighbors. At the end of it, like, these are the people that live next to you. These are the people that know you the most. I mean, as much, right? You may not be friends with them like that, but like they see you every day. Yeah. It don't cost nothing to just give a hi, how you doing, at all, regardless of what they believe in. Man, I live in Tampa, bro. I see Confederate flags everywhere. Florida, but main thing is, man, like, hey, like, you should never lose your humanity behind why you do things and how you live.
Yeah.
So to close out, I got a quote, something to wrap this up that I really like took in and gave me something. The quote is, you must never give in to despair. If you allow yourself to slip down that road, you will surrender to your lowest instincts. In the darkest times, hope is something you give yourself.
Wow. And who's that? Who said that?
Uncle Iroh from Avatar.
From Avatar, The Last Airbender. Let's go.
Last Airbender. Yeah, and man. People don't
think those they don't think those animes are as deep as they are, but they're deep.
Nah, they are, bro. They are, man. Like that's the thing that hit me, man. Like, yo, if you allow yourself to slip down that road, you're gonna surrender to your like lowest instincts, and that's what's really dividing us lately. It's like that despair, that dread is really making us act really funky and kind of outside of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we shouldn't give into that, man.
Couldn't agree more, Cez. Thank you for that.
So,
yeah, do not give into your lowest instincts. Do not give into your lowest instincts. And guys, thank you for being with us through this journey, man. This is the beginning of season 3. Today, again, we just wanted to address the elephant in the room in a lot of rooms that we go into. But guys, thank you again. We got a lot of really exciting things happening this year. Again, we have some really cool ideas, and this year we're really trying to like incorporate all of these ideas. So stick with us. But guys, we want to give a special shout out, all right, to our good friends at Awaken Koala. Thank you for being the sponsor that you've been.
Proud sponsor,
right? And this is a place you can go to for all of your entrepreneurial endeavors, all of your entrepreneurial needs. If it's branding, if it's content creation, right? If it's a lot of these things, Awaken Koala can definitely help. All right, guys. So with with all of that being said, it's been a while since we've been able to do this. But you know what time it is.
You have 1 minute remaining.
All right, so my 1 minute rant. So I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. I'm low key really, I'm messing around with this Acorns or Acorn app. I really like it a lot. It's helped me a lot in the sense of just feeling like I'm doing something for myself in the long term, and it's not really costing me anything other than change here and there. And it's also allowing me to learn how stocks work, how I can invest, how little I can invest to see some yield. Cause I ain't gonna front. I ain't got $200-$300 just to be throwing that at that, just, with the bills of having a child and a home and everything else. Is like, like I don't have that much money to just be investing a monthly or weekly. But I got some side change that I've, just accumulate. And honestly, again, I really like it just because it simplifies everything for me, and it at least allows me to grow in a position where I can learn some more about it, and maybe even eventually get to the point where I can invest $200-$300, but I feel more capable and smarter about it. So shout out to y'all, man. I ain't going front. It's been helping me a lot. That's really it.
Yeah, guys. And Acorns ain't no sponsor of ours, so that's straight from the heart.
Yeah.
He genuinely believes in them. So, hey, guys, we'll probably put a link at the bottom of this video that you guys can go ahead and follow if you want to sign up for Acorns. And it'll be Caesar's personal link, and maybe I'll throw mine down there too. So whichever one y'all want to click on, just click on it. All right.
Yeah, man. If you got any questions, let us know too.
Let us know. Guys, today, my 1 minute rant is simple, but man, Apple products. Apple, they got a vice grip on my nuts, man. You hear me? A vice grip, because just when you think they're not about to drop something that's going to make you want to spend money, they do. And, man, they got me with this Vision Pro. I was just thinking, like, all right, I'm out the Apple game full of, because I just got an iPad. The iPad's been pretty helpful for me. And I like the Apple ecosystem, right? So, and I know that it's, there's a whole lot of debates between Apple and Android, but I love the Apple ecosystem. And, man, this Vision Pro, man, it never made me want to spend $4,000 so fast. I don't got $4,000. That's the crazy thing, but I want to spend it. I want, and that's the problem, man. So my beef is with Apple. I'm sick of y'all. I'm sick of y'all, but at the same time, I love it. I'm here. So, no, the Vision Pro is actually kind of crazy, man. The spatial computing is a wild concept. I mean, I know that the metaverse version of the headset also does that and does it well to a degree. So, man, I really look forward to what the future looks like with spatial computing, man. I can't imagine when they can get all that technology down into a pair of glasses or something. It's gonna be wild. But yeah, we did just enter the future. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're officially there. Like, yeah, we're heading in a new direction with that Vision Pro, because that is wild. If you guys haven't seen videos on what all of that can do, check it out. It's crazy. All right. So, yeah, that's all I got to say.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel at the R.A.N.T Podcast Forever.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also send us an email at rantwiththeboys@gmail.com for any questions, concerns, or topics you want to hear. Again, rantwiththeboys@gmail.com. And all the links are going to be provided on our YouTube channel. So if you need it, go look for us, bro.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We got a lot of fire content for you. Remember, share, like, subscribe. Hey, R.A.N.T out.